Marcus Reed's hands trembled as he shoved clothes into his backpack, moving as quietly as possible despite the chaos erupting downstairs. His stepfather's voice cut through the walls like broken glass, sharp, jagged, dangerous. "You're worthless, just like your deadbeat father." Marcus was 19 years old, technically an adult, but he felt like that scared 10-year-old kid again, hiding in closets while his mother's boyfriend raged through their apartment. 6 months ago, he'd thought coming home from his first semester of college would give him time to figure things out. Instead, he'd walked straight back into the nightmare he'd spent years trying to escape. The difference was, this time his mother wasn't there to stand between them. She'd died 3 months ago. Sudden heart attack, the doctor said. But Marcus knew better. Years of stress, of walking on eggshells, of absorbing her husband Derek's rage to protect her son had finally taken its toll. Now Derek had nothing to hold back for. Marcus zipped his backpack and looked around his childhood bedroom one last time. Faded posters on the walls, a bookshelf full of novels he'd read to escape reality, his mother's picture on the nightstand, her smile frozen in happier times that felt like they'd happened to someone else. He picked up the photo and tucked it into his jacket pocket, right over his heart. Downstairs, glass shattered. Derek was throwing things now. In about 5 minutes, he'd come looking for Marcus, and this time Marcus knew he wouldn't just yell. He'd seen the look in Derek's eyes tonight. That flat, dead stare that meant something had broken inside him for good. The look that meant someone was about to get hurt. Marcus climbed out his window onto the roof of the garage, his boots crunching on the fresh November snow. Montana winters came early and stayed late, and the temperature had already dropped below freezing. His breath came out in white clouds as he lowered himself down the drainage pipe, his backpack weighing heavy on his shoulders. He hit the ground and started walking. No plan, no destination, just moving, putting distance between himself and that house, between himself and Derek's rage. The street was empty at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night. Christmas lights were already going up on some houses, twinkling cheerfully in the darkness. Normal families doing normal things. Marcus had never had that, and he'd stopped believing he ever would. His phone buzzed. 17 missed calls from Derek. He pulled it out, looked at it for a long moment, then dropped it in a snowbank and kept walking. By the time Marcus reached the edge of Whitefish, his fingers had gone numb despite his gloves. He'd been walking for 2 hours with no clear direction, just following the highway north into the mountains. Away from town, away from Derek, away from everything. Snow had started falling harder now, fat flakes that stuck to his jacket and hair. The wind cut through his clothes like knives. He should turn back, find shelter, think this through. But going back meant facing Derek, meant living in that house with a man who'd made it clear Marcus was nothing but a burden now that his mother was gone. Marcus kept walking. The rumble of engines cut through the wind. He turned to see a line of motorcycles approaching from the south, their headlights cutting through the falling snow. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the leather cuts, the patches, the unmistakable silhouette of a motorcycle club. His first instinct was fear. He'd heard stories about bikers, violent, dangerous men who lived outside the law. But as the bikes got closer, slowing down as they approached him, Marcus felt something else override his fear. Desperation. He was freezing. He was lost. He had nowhere to go. The motorcycles pulled to a stop about 20 feet from him. 9 riders, all big men in leather and patches. The lead rider killed his engine and pulled off his helmet. The man was in his late 50s, with a gray beard and eyes that looked like they'd seen every kind of trouble the world had to offer. Tattoos covered his forearms, and the patches on his cut read President and Hell's Angels, Whitefish Chapter. "Kid," the man's voice was gravel rough but not unkind. "What the hell are you doing out here? It's 15 degrees and dropping." Marcus tried to answer, but his teeth were chattering too hard to form words. The president looked at the other riders, then back at Marcus. "You running from something or to something?" "From," Marcus managed. The president nodded like he understood. "Get in the van. We'll give you a ride." Marcus noticed for the first time that a support van was following the group, its hazard lights blinking in the snow. One of the riders opened the back door. Marcus hesitated. These were strangers. Dangerous strangers. Getting in that van could be the stupidest decision of his life, but staying out here meant freezing to death. Marcus climbed into the van. The warmth hit him like a physical force. His frozen fingers screamed with pain as feeling returned to them. Someone handed him a blanket and he wrapped it around himself, shaking violently. "What's your name, kid?" The president had climbed into the passenger seat. Marcus Reed." "I'm Bull. That's what everyone calls me anyway." Bull gestured to the driver, a younger man with a shaved head and a scar across his cheek. "This is Razor. We're heading back to our clubhouse about 20 miles north. You got somewhere you need to be?" Marcus shook his head. Bull studied him for a long moment. "How old are you?" 19. Just turned last month." 19. Bull repeated. "Old enough to make your own choices, then. You want to tell me what you're running from?" Marcus stared at his hands, watching them shake even under the blanket. "My stepfather. It's not safe there anymore, especially not after my mom died." The temperature in the van seemed to drop despite the heater blasting. "He hit you?" Razor's voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow made it more frightening. "Not yet, but tonight I knew he was going to. I saw it in his eyes." Bull and Razor exchanged a look that Marcus couldn't quite read. "You got other family?" Bull asked. "No, just Derek. My real dad left when I was 8. Mom's parents died before I was born. Derek's all that's left, and he made it pretty clear tonight that he wants nothing to do with me, now that Mom's gone." "So where were you planning to go? Walking down a highway in a blizzard at midnight?" Marcus laughed, a hollow sound. "I don't know. Anywhere but there." Bull was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to Razor. "What do you think?" "Club vote," Razor said simply. Bull nodded and pulled out his phone. Marcus watched as he sent a text, then leaned back in his seat. "Here's the situation, Marcus. We're not social services. We're not a homeless shelter. We're a motorcycle club with our own rules and our own way of doing things." Marcus nodded, not sure where this was going. "But," Bull continued, "we don't turn away people who need help, not if we can avoid it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to come back to our clubhouse tonight. We'll give you a warm place to sleep, some food, and in the morning we'll figure out what comes next. Sound fair?" Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them back hard. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Bull's expression softened slightly. "Because every single man in this club has been where you are, kid. Maybe not the exact same situation, but we've all been lost, broken, running from something. Someone helped us once upon a time. We're just passing it forward." The clubhouse was a long, low building on the outskirts of a small town Marcus didn't recognize. Motorcycles were parked in neat rows outside, and warm light spilled from the windows into the snowy night. As the van pulled up, the other riders were already dismounting, pulling off helmets and heading inside. Marcus could see more men through the windows, a lot more. This wasn't just a small group, this was a full chapter. Bull opened the van door and gestured for Marcus to follow. "Come on, let's get you warmed up properly." Inside, the clubhouse was exactly what Marcus had imagined and nothing like it at the same time. There was a bar along one wall, pool tables, worn leather couches, and probably 40 men scattered throughout the space. The walls were covered with photographs, patches, and memorabilia from decades of club history. But it wasn't threatening. It was comfortable, like walking into someone's well-worn living room. Conversation stopped as Marcus walked in. 40 pairs of eyes turned to stare at him. Bull raised his hand. "Brothers, this is Marcus. Found him walking down Highway 93 in the middle of a blizzard. He needs a place to stay tonight." A huge man with a long red beard stood up from one of the couches. "He in trouble?" "Running from an abusive situation," Bull said simply. "He's 19, got nowhere else to go." The red-bearded man nodded. "Welcome, Marcus. I'm Torch. You hungry?" Marcus realized he hadn't eaten since breakfast. "Yeah, really hungry." Torch grinned. "Good. We got leftover chili. Sit down before you fall down, kid. You look like you're about to keel over." For the next hour, Marcus sat at a table eating the best chili he'd ever tasted while members of the Hells Angels, Whitefish chapter, came up to introduce themselves. Each one had a road name: Torch, Razor, Snake, Wrench, Bear. Each one had a story etched into the lines of their faces, and each one treated him not like an intruder, but like a guest. So, Bull sat down across from Marcus after he'd finished eating. "Let's talk about tomorrow." Marcus set down his spoon, his stomach tight with anxiety. Okay. You got any money? About $200. It's what I had saved from my job at the campus bookstore. Bull nodded. That'll get you maybe a week in a motel, if you're lucky. Then what? I don't know, Marcus admitted. I haven't thought that far ahead. I just knew I had to get out of that house tonight. Fair enough. What about school? You said you were in college? Was. First semester at Montana State. I came home after Mom died to handle her affairs, and then... Marcus trailed off. Derek wouldn't let me leave. He said I owed him for all the years he'd taken care of me, that I needed to get a job and contribute. Bull's jaw tightened. How much time you got left in the semester? It's over. Finals were last week. I failed everything because I couldn't concentrate, couldn't study with Derek on my case constantly. You planning to go back? Marcus laughed bitterly. With what money? Derek won't sign the financial aid forms. He told me if I wanted to go to college so bad, I could pay for it myself. Bull was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the bar, where several other members had gathered. Marcus watched as they talked in low voices, occasionally glancing his way. Finally, Bull came back. Here's what we're offering, and it's a one-time deal, so think carefully before you answer. Marcus sat up straighter. You can stay here. We've got a spare room in the back that we use for brothers who need to crash. It's not much. A bed, a dresser, a bathroom down the hall. But it's warm, and it's safe. Marcus's heart started pounding. In exchange, Bull continued, you work. We need someone to help maintain the clubhouse. Cleaning, repairs, running errands, helping in the kitchen. We'll pay you minimum wage, cash. It won't be much, but combined with room and board, you'll be able to save up. For how long? Marcus asked. As long as you need. Could be a month, could be 6 months, could be a year. That's up to you. Bull leaned forward. But there are rules. No drugs, no stealing, no disrespecting the brothers or the club. You follow our rules, you pull your weight, you'll have a place here. You screw up, you're out. Understand? Marcus felt like he couldn't breathe. They were offering him exactly what he needed. Safety, time, a chance to figure out his life without Derek's shadow hanging over him. Why? He asked. Why would you do this for me? Bull smiled. A real smile that made his whole face change. I told you, kid. We've all been where you are. My old man used to beat the hell out of me when I was growing up. When I turned 18, I ran. Ended up in California, broken down on the side of the road with nowhere to go. Hell's Angels found me, gave me a chance. He gestured around the room. Every man in this club has a story. We were all lost once. We all needed someone to believe in us when nobody else would. That's what brotherhood means, Marcus. Taking care of each other, passing it forward. Marcus looked around at the faces watching him. Hard men with soft eyes. Men who'd seen violence and pain and come out the other side still believing in something. Yes, Marcus said. Yes, I want to stay. Bull nodded. Welcome to the clubhouse, Marcus. Let's show you your room. The room was small, just like Bull had said. A single bed with a thick quilt, a battered dresser, a lamp. A window that looked out over the snowy parking lot. But it had a door that locked from the inside, and that was all Marcus needed. Get some sleep, Bull said from the doorway. Tomorrow we'll figure out the details. Breakfast is at 7. Don't be late. After Bull left, Marcus sat on the bed and pulled out his mother's photograph. Her smile looked back at him, frozen in a moment of happiness. I'm okay, Mom, he whispered to the picture. I think I'm going to be okay. For the first time in months, Marcus believed it. He fell asleep within minutes, lulled by the low rumble of voices from the main room, the warmth of the heater, and the strange, unexpected feeling of being safe. Marcus woke to the smell of bacon and coffee. For a moment, he forgot where he was. The unfamiliar room, the distant sound of men's voices, the rumble of motorcycle engines starting up outside. Then it all came rushing back. The walk through the snow, the van, the clubhouse, Bull's offer. He sat up and looked at the clock on the dresser. 6:45 a.m. 15 minutes until breakfast. Marcus scrambled out of bed and pulled on his clothes from yesterday. He didn't have much else, just what he'd shoved into his backpack in his panic to escape. Looking in the small mirror above the dresser, he saw dark circles under his eyes, hair sticking up at odd angles, the shadow of stubble on his jaw. He looked like hell, but he was alive, and that was something. The main room of the clubhouse had transformed overnight. The bar was closed, the pool tables covered. Instead, long tables had been set up and men were gathering around them with plates of food. The scene looked almost domestic. Bikers in leather cuts serving themselves eggs and bacon, passing around coffee pots, talking about the weather and motorcycle maintenance. "Marcus," Torch waved him over. "Get some food before these animals eat it all." Marcus filled a plate and sat down at one of the tables, acutely aware of being the youngest person in the room by at least a decade. Most of the men looked to be in their 40s and 50s, with a few pushing 60. "Sleep okay?" the man next to him asked. He was shorter than most of the others, with a neat gray beard and kind eyes. His patch read Doc. "Yeah, better than I have in months, actually." Doc nodded. "That's good. Bull told us about your situation. Rough deal, losing your mom and then dealing with that stepfather bullshit." Marcus didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. "Bull also said you're going to help around here. That right?" "Yeah. He said you needed someone for maintenance and errands." "We do. Place this size, there's always something that needs fixing or cleaning." Doc sipped his coffee. "You know anything about electrical work? Plumbing?" "I can Google it," Marcus said, then worried that sounded flippant. But Doc just laughed. "Good enough. YouTube's taught half the men in this room how to fix their bikes. I'm sure it can teach you how to fix a leaky faucet." Bull appeared at the head of the table, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Brothers, listen up. Most of you met Marcus last night. For those who didn't, he's staying here for a while, helping out around the clubhouse. He's under club protection, which means what?" "He's family," several voices called out. "That's right. Anyone fucks with Marcus, they fuck with all of us. Clear?" A chorus of agreement. Bull turned to Marcus. "After breakfast, Wrench is going to show you around, explain your duties. You got questions? You ask. You got problems? You bring them to me. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir. I work for a living." Bull grinned and several men laughed. "It's Bull, or Prez if you're feeling formal. Now eat up. It's going to be a long day." Wrench turned out to be a tall, wiry man in his early 50s with grease permanently embedded under his fingernails. He walked Marcus through the clubhouse, pointing out what needed to be done. "Bathrooms get cleaned every day. Kitchen gets cleaned after every meal. Main room gets vacuumed every other day. More if we've had a party." Wrench opened a closet full of cleaning supplies. "All the shit you need is in here. You run out of something, you tell me, and I'll get more." "Okay." "Outside, we've got a garage where brothers work on their bikes. It's a mess right now. Part of your job is keeping it organized. Tools back where they belong, floors swept, oil spills cleaned up." They walked through the garage, which was indeed a mess. Motorcycles in various states of disassembly, tools scattered on workbenches, parts piled in corners. "This is going to take a while," Marcus said. "We ain't in a rush. Just a little bit every day, and eventually it'll get done." Wrench clapped him on the shoulder. "You ever work on bikes before?" "No, never." "Want to learn?" Marcus thought about it. He'd always been more of a books guy than a hands-on guy. But something about the idea appealed to him. Learning a skill, working with his hands, creating something instead of just thinking about things. "Yeah, I'd like that." Wrench's face lit up. "Good. I'll teach you. Nothing like the freedom of the road on two wheels, kid. Once you learn to ride, you'll never be the same." They spent the rest of the morning cleaning the garage. Wrench showed Marcus where everything belonged, explained the basics of motorcycle maintenance, and told stories about runs he'd been on, places he'd seen, brothers he'd known over the years. By noon, Marcus's back ached and his hands were dirty, but the garage looked better. More importantly, he felt useful for the first time in months. Lunch was sandwiches and soup. Marcus sat with Doc, Wrench, and a few other members whose names he was still trying to remember. "So, Marcus," Doc said between bites of his sandwich, "Bull mentioned you were in college before all this happened. What were you studying?" "English literature. I want to be a writer someday. Or I did. I don't know anymore." "Why not still?" Marcus shrugged. "Because wanting to be a writer doesn't pay the bills. Because I barely made it through one semester. Because Derek's probably right. It's a stupid dream for someone like me." Doc set down his sandwich and looked at Marcus seriously. "Let me tell you something, kid. I'm a dentist. Or I was before I retired. Had a successful practice, made good money, did everything I was supposed to do." Marcus blinked. "You're a dentist?" "Was. That's why they call me Doc." He smiled. Point is, I spent 30 years doing what I was supposed to do, what everyone expected of me, made a lot of money, had a nice house, nice car, all that shit. But I hated it. Every goddamn day I hated it. You know what I loved? Riding, being with my brothers. This. He gestured around the clubhouse. This is what made me feel alive. So when I turned 55, I sold my practice, sold my house, and devoted myself full-time to the club. Do you regret it? Marcus asked. Not for a single second. Best decision I ever made. Doc leaned forward. Here's the thing, Marcus. Life's too short to waste it doing shit that doesn't matter to you. If you want to write, then write. Don't let some asshole stepfather or anyone else tell you your dreams are stupid. But I need money. I need a way to support myself. So you work during the day and you write at night. You take classes online. You do whatever you have to do to keep moving toward that goal. Doc's voice was firm. You're 19 years old. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Don't give up on your dreams before you've even really started. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest, something that had been tight and hard for months. Thank you. I needed to hear that. We all need to hear it sometimes, kid. Now finish your lunch. Bull wants you to help Torch with inventory this afternoon. The days fell into a rhythm. Marcus woke at 6:30, had breakfast with the brothers who were around, then spent his days cleaning, organizing, running errands, and learning. Wrench taught him about motorcycles. Doc taught him about people. Torch taught him how to cook for a crowd. Bull taught him about leadership and responsibility. In the evenings, after his work was done, Marcus would retreat to his room and write. Stories about people on the margins, about found families, about second chances. He wrote about his mother, about Derek, about the Hells Angels who'd given him a safe harbor when he'd had nowhere else to go. Weeks passed, then a month, then 2. Winter deepened, and the snow piled higher around the clubhouse. Marcus learned to ride a motorcycle, starting with an old Harley that Wrench had rebuilt. His first solo ride around the parking lot felt like flying. He learned to change oil, replace spark plugs, and adjust carburetors. He learned the names and stories of all 43 members of the Whitefish chapter. He learned the difference between a prospect and a full member, between a charter and a chapter, between club business and club brotherhood. And slowly, carefully, he started to heal. The nightmares about Derek became less frequent. The constant anxiety that had lived in his chest for months began to fade. He laughed more, talked more, allowed himself to imagine a future that didn't involve looking over his shoulder. You're different, Bull observed one evening in late January. They were sitting in Bull's office, a small room off the main clubhouse where the president handled club business. Different how? Marcus asked. Lighter. When you first showed up, you looked like you were carrying the weight of the world. Now. Bull shrugged. You look like a kid who's figuring out that life might actually be okay. Marcus thought about that. I feel different. I feel like maybe I can actually do something with my life instead of just surviving it. That's because you're safe here. You've got time to breathe, to think, to plan. Bull leaned back in his chair. Speaking of planning, have you thought about what comes next? What do you mean? I mean, you've been here almost 3 months. You've been a huge help around the clubhouse, and we're grateful for that. But this isn't a permanent solution, Marcus. This is a bridge to whatever comes next. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Are you asking me to leave? No, Bull said quickly. Hell no. You can stay as long as you need. But I'm asking you to think about what you want your life to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Because you're a smart kid, Marcus. Too smart to spend your whole life cleaning garages and running errands. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I want to go back to school, finish my degree, but I don't have the money, and Derek won't help. Derek's not your only option, Bull said. You're old enough to file for financial aid as an independent student. You can apply for scholarships. You can take out loans. I don't even know where to start with all that. Lucky for you, Doc used to serve on the admissions committee at University of Montana before he got sick of academia and went to dental school. He knows the system inside and out. Bull pulled out his phone. How about we get his input? 15 minutes later, Doc was sitting in Bull's office with a legal pad, asking Marcus questions about his grades, his interests, his long-term goals. You should apply to University of Montana, Doc said finally. They've got a solid English program, and they're good about working with non-traditional students. You'll probably qualify for grants since you're independent now. Between that and some student loans, you could swing it. But I failed all my classes last semester at Montana State. Won't that hurt my chances? You can explain that in your application essay. Talk about what you were going through, how you've grown since then. Admissions committees love a comeback story. Doc smiled. Plus, you've been gainfully employed for the past 3 months. That counts for something. When's the application deadline? Marcus asked. For fall semester? March 1st. That gives you about 6 weeks. Bull leaned forward. Here's what I'm thinking. You keep working here through spring and summer, save up every penny you can. In the fall you start school. You can still work here part-time if you want, or you can find something closer to campus. And if I don't get in? Then you apply to other schools, community college, whatever. Point is, you work towards something instead of just treading water. Bull's expression was serious. You've got potential, Marcus. Don't waste it. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes, but he blinked them back. Why do you guys care so much? I'm nobody. Just some kid you picked up off the highway. Doc and Bull exchanged a look. Can I tell him? Doc asked. Bull nodded. Doc turned to Marcus. I had a son, Daniel. He was about your age when he died. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. No reason you would. It was 15 years ago. Doc's voice was steady, but Marcus could see the pain in his eyes. He was in an abusive relationship. His girlfriend used to hit him, control him, isolate him from his friends and family. We tried to help, but he wouldn't listen. Thought he could fix her. Thought he loved her. What happened? She killed him, beat him to death during an argument, then tried to make it look like a suicide. Doc's hands clenched on the legal pad. He'd tried to leave her 3 times. Each time she convinced him to come back. The 4th time, he didn't get another chance. The room was silent except for the hum of the heater. I blamed myself for years, Doc continued. Thought if I'd just tried harder, done more, maybe I could have saved him. But Bull helped me understand something. What's that? You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. But when someone reaches out, when they ask for help, when they take that first step toward getting out of a bad situation. Doc met Marcus's eyes. Then you do everything in your power to help them. Because that might be the only chance they get. You remind me of him, Doc said softly. My son. The way you think. The way you talk about writing. You even look a little like him. When Bull called me that first night and told me about you, I knew I had to help. Had to give you the chance that Daniel never got. Marcus's throat was too tight to speak. So that's why we care, Bull said. Not because you're nobody, because you're somebody who deserves a shot at a real life, and we're in a position to help make that happen. Marcus wiped his eyes. Thank you. I don't know what else to say except thank you. Don't thank us yet, Bull said with a slight smile. Thank us when you graduate college and dedicate your first book to the crazy bikers who believed in me. Despite everything, Marcus laughed. Over the next 6 weeks, Marcus threw himself into his college application with the same intensity he'd once devoted to escaping Derek. Doc helped him craft his essay, explaining the gap in his academic record without making it sound like an excuse. Wrench proofread his writing samples and offered surprisingly insightful feedback. Torch helped him gather his financial documents. The entire club became invested in Marcus's future. When he finally submitted his application on February 28th, 2 hours before the deadline, the brothers threw him an impromptu celebration. Burgers on the grill, despite the freezing temperatures. Beer for everyone except Marcus, who was still underage. Stories and laughter and the kind of camaraderie that Marcus had never experienced before. Speech, Torch called out, and the others took up the chant. Speech! Speech! Marcus stood up, his face burning. I don't know what to say except that you guys saved my life. When I walked out into that snow 3 months ago, I didn't think I'd see spring. I didn't think I had a future, but you showed me that I was wrong. His voice cracked, but he pushed through. You gave me a safe place to land. You taught me skills and gave me confidence and made me believe that maybe I was worth something after all. Whatever happens with this application, whether I get in or not, I want you to know that you changed my life. You're my family now, and I'm never going to forget that. The room erupted in applause. Bull stood and raised his beer. To Marcus, may he go out and show the world what we already know, that he's one hell of a man. To Marcus, the brothers echoed. Marcus sat down, overwhelmed with emotion. These men, These rough, tattooed bikers who society looked down on and feared had shown him more love and support than his own stepfather ever had. The acceptance letter arrived on March 15th. Marcus was cleaning the garage when Wrench came running in, waving an envelope. "It came! Kid, it came!" Marcus dropped his broom, his heart pounding. His hands shook as he took the envelope. University of Montana, official admissions office. He couldn't open it. What if it was a rejection? What if all their work, all their hope, had been for nothing? "Want me to open it?" Wrench asked gently. Marcus shook his head. He tore open the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. "Dear Marcus Reed, we are pleased to inform you." "I got in," Marcus whispered. "I got in." Wrench let out a whoop that brought the other brothers running. Within seconds, Marcus was surrounded by backslapping, cheering bikers. Bull pushed through the crowd, grinning like a proud father. "Knew you'd do it, kid. Knew it all along." "They gave me a partial scholarship," Marcus said, still staring at the letter in disbelief. "And financial aid. Between that and student loans, I can actually afford it." "That's my boy." Doc grabbed Marcus in a hug. "That's my boy." That night, the celebration was even bigger than the one when he'd submitted his application. The brothers grilled steaks, broke out the expensive whiskey, and shared stories late into the night. Marcus sat in the middle of it all, feeling like he'd finally found where he belonged. "You know," Bull said, sitting down next to him, "you don't have to leave the clubhouse just because you're starting school. You can keep your room here, commute to campus. It's only about 45 minutes. "Really? You'd let me stay?" "Kid, you're family now. This is your home for as long as you want it to be." Marcus felt tears threaten again. "Thank you. For everything. I don't think I can ever repay you." "Don't have to repay us. Just do the same for someone else someday. That's how this works." Bull took a sip of his whiskey. "We take care of each other, we pass it forward, and we make the world a little less shitty one person at a time." Spring arrived in Montana with mud and melting snow. Marcus continued working at the clubhouse, saving every penny he could. He registered for classes, bought used textbooks online, and prepared for the biggest change of his life. In late May, Derek finally tracked him down. Marcus was outside washing motorcycles when a familiar truck pulled into the clubhouse parking lot. His blood ran cold. Derek climbed out, looking older and meaner than Marcus remembered. His face was flushed, whether from anger or alcohol, Marcus couldn't tell. "Marcus!" Derek's voice cut across the parking lot. "Get over here, now!" Marcus stood frozen, the hose still running in his hand. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Bull appeared in the clubhouse doorway, followed by Wrench, Torch, and a half-dozen other brothers. "Can we help you?" Bull's voice was deceptively calm. Derek's eyes swept over the group, and Marcus saw a flicker of uncertainty cross his face. But anger won out. "I'm here for my son. That ungrateful little shit ran away 6 months ago, and I want him back." "I'm not your son," Marcus found his voice. "And I'm 19 years old. I don't have to go anywhere with you." "The hell you don't. I took care of you for 10 years, fed you, clothed you, gave you a roof over your head. You owe me." "I owe you nothing," Marcus said, his voice stronger now. "You made my life hell for 10 years. You made my mother's life hell. I'm not coming back." Derek took a step forward. "You little—" Bull moved in front of Marcus, and the other brothers spread out in a line. Not threatening, just present. A wall of leather and muscle between Derek and Marcus. "I think you should leave," Bull said quietly. "This is none of your business." "Actually, it is. Marcus is under club protection. That makes it very much our business." Derek looked at the line of bikers, and Marcus saw the moment he realized he was outmatched. His face twisted with rage. "Fine, keep him, but don't come crying to me when you realize what a worthless piece of shit he is. He's just like his deadbeat father. Good for nothing." The words still stung, but they didn't have the power they once did. "I'd rather be like my father than anything like you," Marcus said. "Now leave, and don't come back." Derek stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus stared back. He wasn't a scared kid anymore. He was a man with a family, a future, and the courage to stand up for himself. Derek got back in his truck and peeled out of the parking lot, spraying gravel. Marcus's legs gave out and he sat down hard on the pavement. Bull crouched beside him. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay. And amazingly, it was true. He can't hurt me anymore. No, Bull agreed. He can't. You've got 43 brothers who'll make damn sure of that. Marcus looked up at the men surrounding him. Men who'd taught him about strength and loyalty and what it really meant to be a family. I love you guys, he said. I know that's probably not something you say in a motorcycle club, but it's true. I love you. Doc smiled. We love you too, kid. Now get up and finish washing these bikes. They're not going to clean themselves. Everyone laughed, and the tension broke. Marcus got up, turned the hose back on, and went back to work, feeling lighter than he had in years. The summer passed in a blur of work and preparation. Marcus saved $3,000, bought a used laptop, and got his class schedule finalized. He learned to ride his own motorcycle, a 1995 Harley Sportster that Wrench helped him rebuild from scratch. In August, Marcus started his first semester at the University of Montana. He was terrified. What if he failed again? What if he couldn't handle the workload? What if Derek had been right, and he was just a worthless dreamer chasing an impossible goal? But on his first day of classes, as he sat in an introduction to creative writing seminar, the professor asked each student to share what they hoped to get out of the class. When it was Marcus's turn, he stood up. I want to write stories about people on the margins. People who've been broken and put themselves back together. People who find family in unexpected places and second chances when they thought they'd run out of options. The professor smiled. That sounds like a story worth telling. I look forward to reading it. That night, Marcus returned to the clubhouse and went straight to his room. He opened his laptop and started typing. The winter I turned 19, I ran from my home straight to a biker clubhouse. The words flowed like water. All the fear and pain and hope of the past year poured onto the page. He wrote until his fingers cramped, until his eyes burned, until the story was told. When he finally finished, the sun was coming up. Marcus saved the document and sat back, exhausted but satisfied. A knock on his door made him jump. Come in. Bull stepped inside, holding 2 cups of coffee. Saw your light on. Figured you could use this. Thanks. Marcus accepted the coffee gratefully. You were up all night. Writing? Yeah, I think I finally figured out what I want my first real story to be about. What's that? Marcus smiled. About a kid who thought he had nobody and 43 bikers who proved him wrong. Bull's eyes got suspiciously bright. That's a good story, kid. Make sure you tell it right. I will. I promise. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun rise over the Montana mountains, gilding the snow-capped peaks in gold. You know what the best part of my job is? Bull asked finally. What? Moments like this. Watching someone we helped find their way. Watching them become who they were always meant to be. Bull set down his coffee cup. You came to us broken, Marcus, but you weren't broken beyond repair. You just needed time and space and people who believed in you. You gave me all of that. We did. And now you're going to go out into the world and make something of yourself. Write your stories, help people, maybe even save a few lives along the way. I want to, Marcus said. I want to help people the way you helped me. Then do it. And when you're successful, when you're a famous writer with books on bestseller lists, remember where you came from. Remember the clubhouse and the brothers and what we taught you. I could never forget. Bull stood up and put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. I know you won't, son. Now get some sleep. You've got class in 6 hours. Okay, Dad. The words slipped out before Marcus could stop it. Bull's hand tightened on his shoulder. When Marcus looked up, the older man's eyes were wet with tears. You know, Bull said, his voice rough. I never had kids of my own. Always regretted that. But if I had a son, I'd want him to be exactly like you. Marcus stood and hugged him, something he never would have dared 6 months ago. Bull hugged him back, fierce and strong. Thank you, Marcus whispered, for everything, for saving my life. You saved your own life, kid. We just gave you a safe place to do it. Marcus graduated with honors 3 years later. The entire Whitefish chapter attended the ceremony, 43 bikers in leather cuts sitting in the University of Montana auditorium, cheering louder than anyone when Marcus's name was called. After the ceremony, as Marcus stood with his diploma surrounded by his brothers, a reporter from the local news approached. Excuse me, are you all family? Bull grinned and threw his arm around Marcus's shoulders. Damn right we're family. How are you related? Marcus looked at the men who'd given him a second chance, who'd taught him what it meant to be strong and brave and loved. They're my brothers, he said simply, in every way that matters. The reporter looked confused, but Marcus didn't care. He knew the truth. Family wasn't about blood. It was about who showed up when you needed them most. Who believed in you when you stopped believing in yourself. Who caught you when you fell and helped you learn to fly. I got accepted to the graduate writing program at Iowa, Marcus announced that evening at the clubhouse celebration. The brothers cheered, but Marcus saw sadness in some of their eyes. That's in Iowa, Torch said. That's really far. I know, but it's one of the best programs in the country. If I want to be a serious writer, this is where I need to be. Bull raised his beer. Then that's where you'll go. We're proud of you, kid. I wouldn't have gotten here without you, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Any of you. You saved my life, and I'm never going to forget that. You're going to do great things, Doc said. I know it. And you're going to visit, Wrench added. Summers, holidays, whenever you can. You've still got a room here. Always, Bull agreed. This is your home, Marcus. Distance doesn't change that. Marcus looked around at the faces of the men who'd become his family. I love you guys. All of you. We love you too, kid, Bull said. Now let's eat. Torch made his famous ribs. That night, after the celebration wound down, Marcus stood outside the clubhouse looking up at the stars. The Montana sky was vast and clear, full of infinite possibilities. He thought about the scared 19-year-old who'd stumbled into this place almost 4 years ago. That kid had been broken, lost, convinced he had no future, but he'd been wrong. Thank you, Marcus whispered to the universe, to his mother's memory, to whatever force had guided him to this clubhouse on that freezing night. Behind him, the door opened. Bull stepped out, lighting a cigarette. Can't sleep? Just thinking, Marcus said. About how different my life could have been if you guys hadn't stopped that night. But we did stop, and you had the courage to get in that van. Bull took a drag of his cigarette. You know what the real miracle is? What? That you didn't give up. You could have gone back to Derek. You could have decided college was too hard. You could have settled for less than you deserved. But you didn't. You fought for yourself, Marcus. We just gave you a place to do it. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I'm going to write about this, you know. About all of you. About what you did for me. I figured you would. Just change our names. Some of the brothers have outstanding warrants. Bull grinned. Marcus laughed. I will. But Bull... Yeah? Thank you. I know I've said it 1,000 times, but I need to say it again. Thank you for stopping that night. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for being the father I needed when I had nobody else. Bull's cigarette trembled in his hand. He cleared his throat roughly. You know what you're going to do when you're a famous writer? What? You're going to help other kids like you. Kids who are lost and scared and need someone to believe in them. That's how you pay it forward, Marcus. That's how you honor what we gave you. I will, Marcus promised. I swear I will. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Two men bound not by blood, but by something stronger. Choice, loyalty, love. The family you found when you needed it most. The family that saved your life. 10 years later, Marcus Reed stood in a bookstore in Whitefish, Montana, signing copies of his latest novel. The Brotherhood had been on the New York Times bestseller list for 16 weeks. The dedication page read, For Bull, Doc, Wrench, Torch, and all my brothers. You taught me what family really means. An older woman approached the signing table with 3 copies of the book. Could you sign these for my grandsons? They're going through a rough time right now, and I thought your story might help them. Of course. Marcus picked up his pen. What are their names? As he signed the books, he noticed movement in the back of the store. 43 men in leather cuts filed in, trying and failing to be inconspicuous. Marcus grinned. Bull made his way to the front of the line. He was grayer now, a little slower, but his eyes were still sharp and kind. Thought we'd surprise you, Bull said. Best surprise ever. Marcus came around the table and hugged him. The other brothers lined up, each getting their books signed, each exchanging stories and laughter and the easy affection of men who'd known each other for years. When the signing finally ended, they all went back to the clubhouse. Marcus's old room was exactly as he'd left it, preserved like a shrine. "We keep it ready," Wrench explained, "in case you need it." "I always need it," Marcus said. "This is home. You guys are home." That night, sitting around the clubhouse with his brothers, Marcus told them about the foundation he'd started. The Second Chance Foundation provided housing, job training, and support for young adults escaping abusive situations. "We've helped 53 people so far," Marcus said. "Found them safe places to stay, helped them get back into school or find jobs. 3 of them are in college now. 1 just got engaged." "That's incredible," Doc said, his eyes shining with pride. "I learned from the best." Marcus looked around the room. "You showed me how to pass it forward, how to be there for people when they need it most. I'm just following your example." Bull raised his beer. "To family. The ones we're born to and the ones we choose." "To family," everyone echoed. Marcus looked around at the faces of the men who'd saved his life. Some were older, some had new scars, but they were all still here. Still brothers, still family. And Marcus Reed, the scared 19-year-old who'd run from his home straight to a biker clubhouse, finally understood the truth. He hadn't just been saved that night, he'd been found, and he'd never be lost again. 5 years after that bookstore signing, Marcus stood at the podium of a packed auditorium in Missoula. The Second Chance Foundation had grown beyond anything he'd imagined. They now operated safe houses in 7 states, helping over 300 young adults annually escape dangerous situations. But tonight was special. Tonight, Marcus was unveiling something that had taken 2 years to build. The Bull Morrison House, a residential facility specifically designed for young men aged 18-25 who had nowhere else to turn. Bull sat in the front row, flanked by the entire Whitefish chapter. At 72, he'd officially retired as president, but his presence still commanded respect. Beside him sat 3 young men Marcus had personally helped through the foundation, all now thriving, employed, and paying it forward. "When I was 19, Marcus began, his voice steady and clear. "I walked down a frozen highway convinced my life was over. I'd given up on myself, on my dreams, on everything. But 43 strangers saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. They saw potential where I saw failure. They saw family where I saw isolation." He paused, making eye contact with Bull, who nodded encouragingly. "This facility represents everything they taught me, that every person deserves a second chance, that family isn't about biology, it's about showing up, that love isn't just a feeling, it's action, it's choice, it's commitment." Marcus gestured to the architectural rendering behind him. "The Bull Morrison House will provide housing for 24 young men at a time. We'll offer job training, educational support, counseling, and most importantly, community. Because that's what saved my life, not just shelter but brotherhood." The audience erupted in applause. Bull stood, and the entire Whitefish chapter stood with him, their leather cuts a wall of solidarity and pride. After the presentation, a young man approached Marcus hesitantly. He couldn't have been more than 20, with frightened eyes and clothes that had seen better days. "Mr. Reed, I read your book. I'm in a situation kind of like you were. My dad—" He trailed off, unable to continue. Marcus recognized that look. He'd worn it himself once. "What's your name?" Jake Peterson." Marcus put a hand on his shoulder, the same way Bull had done for him all those years ago. "Jake, you came to the right place. We're going to help you." Tears spilled down Jake's face. Really, that's what we do. That's what family does." As Marcus connected Jake with one of the foundation's caseworkers, he caught Bull's eye across the room. The old biker smiled, that same proud, knowing smile he'd given Marcus a decade ago. The cycle continued, broken people finding each other, healing happening in unexpected places, families being built from courage and compassion rather than blood. And somewhere on a frozen Montana highway, another story was waiting to begin. A message from the author. This story is more than entertainment. It's a reminder that we all have the power to change someone's life. If Marcus's story touched your heart, I invite you to take action. 1. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss stories about redemption, hope, and the power of second chances. Every subscription helps us reach more people who need to hear that giving up is never the only option. 2. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Maybe it's a friend going through a difficult time, a family member who feels alone, or a stranger who just needs to know that good people still exist. Your share could literally save a life. 3. Comment below and tell us, what city or country are you watching from? I love seeing how far these stories travel. Have you ever been helped by an unexpected stranger? Have you ever been someone's bull, the person who showed up when it mattered? What part of Marcus's journey resonated most with you? 4. If you or someone you know is in an abusive situation, please reach out for help. You are not alone. National Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-799-7233. Crisis Text Line. Text HOME to 741741. Sam H. Say National Helpline 1-800-662-4357. 5. Support organizations in your community that provide shelter, counseling, and second chances to people who need them. Volunteer your time, donate resources, or simply spread awareness. Be someone's Hell's Angels. Remember, every person you see is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind. Be present. Be the reason someone believes in humanity again. Marcus's story started because one man decided to stop his motorcycle instead of riding past. One choice. One moment of compassion. One decision to help. What choice will you make today? Hit that subscribe button, share this story, and let's build a community of people who believe in second chances, found families, and the power of showing up for each other. Because you never know, the life you save might be your own. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being part of this journey. Now go be someone's angel. The world is waiting.